In a world where humans are gifted with special powers so that they can entertain the gods by playing their games, we see a group of men find a girl named Lea who is frozen in ice. They think about contacting the authorities, but she suddenly talks to them, revealing herself as a former god, and she asks to meet the best player of their generation. We cut to the city, where we meet a boy named Fay, who has just returned after taking a long vacation. We learn that he's been away for 6 months, and he's surprised to see the gods' games, because there are 3 of them running simultaneously. But the players are struggling to complete the games, and they all end up losing. We learn that he's also a player, and he thinks about joining in, so he makes his way to the arcane court building, where we see the players gathering. He talks to the chief secretary Miranda, telling her that he's looking for the girl who taught him how to play. He describes her appearance, and Miranda tells him that they found someone who matches the description, saying she wants to talk to him about the games. She tells Fay about Lea, saying they found her a year ago, and she wants to see him. Miranda explains that Lea played tag with humans, so she hid on the ocean floor, but she ended up getting frozen for 3,000 years because she fell asleep in the middle of the game. Miranda reveals that Lea is an avatar of flame, and although her powers have declined, she can still destroy the city, so Miranda advises him to be cautious. She orders Fay to watch over Lea, and he can't believe she's giving him this task, realizing that the city's fate rests on his shoulders. They make their way to Leisha's room, as Miranda explains that she wants to know why Lea descended to Earth, and she tells him to keep Lea entertained, so he needs to play with her. They enter her room, where he sees a pair of dice, and he tells Miranda that he's going to roll a 4 and a 6, and he's able to do it. So she wonders if it was just a coincidence, but he explains that he has a technique, saying there's a secret to throwing the dice. He sees Lea, realizing that she looks identical to the person he's looking for, and Miranda tells her that he's the best player of their generation, revealing that he has won 3 games in a row. Miranda tells him not to mess up, and she leaves the room, as Lea reveals that she wants to play a game with him, saying the game will help them get to know each other. She shows him the cards, as she explains that she made them when she was bored, and we see that they each have something written on them. She explains that the game is called self-intro memory, saying they need to match the cards so that the opposing player will provide the information. She shuffles the cards, but Fay tells her to do it again because it was facing up when she explained the rules, and she realizes that he has already memorized the location of each card. She thinks he's impressive, realizing that he wants to play fair, so she decides to use her magic, which causes the cards to keep moving, thinking it's going to make the game fun. She adds that unlike a regular memory game, they won't get another turn even if they find a matching pair. So Fay realizes that the game is going to be challenging, but he becomes excited, and Lea begins the game. We see Miranda watching the game through a camera, as Fay picks 2 cards, and he ends up getting hometown and blood type. He wonders if the gods have blood, and Lea confirms this, saying it's so hot that it can melt buildings. But she tells him to match 2 blood type cards if he wants to learn more, and she's about to select her cards, but he becomes distracted and asks if she's wearing any underwear. But she thinks it isn't necessary because she already has clothes covering her skin. He says he can't concentrate, so she moves away as she picks her cards, and she gets hometown and name. She returns the cards, telling Fay that they have already seen both hometown cards, and she asks him if he knows where they are. So he reveals that he was able to track their movements, and he's able to match the cards, so Lea tells him about her hometown, saying she comes from a place called the Elements, where the gods reside. She reveals that humans need a special door to enter it, but Fay already knows about this, saying he used it in the past. Miranda knows that the gods are bored, so they gave the humans powers, and created games for them to play. We learn that humans with powers are called apostles, and they challenge the gods to play games, which take place within the elements. The apostles can only use their powers while playing, but if they're able to win a game, they're allowed to use a portion of their powers in the real world, which is filled with hostile creatures, so the humans can't explore it. But in order to use their full power in the real world, they need to win 10 games so that the gods will give them the clear status. We learn that there's a celebration after they clear the games, but to this day, nobody has ever achieved this because the apostles lose their right to play after they lose 3 times. Miranda thinks Fay is humanity's best chance of clearing the gods' games, and we return to Fay as he wonders why Lea isn't hesitating to answer his questions. So she explains that games are meant to be enjoyed, and during her turn, she's able to match the name cards, so he gives her a formal introduction. But he realizes that he has given her more than just his name, realizing that they can learn more about each other if they ask the right questions. He believes that he doesn't need to match all the cards to win the game, because the goal is to gather information from the opponent. Moments later, Fay notes that he's starting to gather enough information, but Lea matches 2 blank cards, and we learn that it allows her to ask any question she wants. But she suddenly exudes her aura, asking him why he's trying to get closer to her, so he becomes intimidated, knowing she can destroy him in an instant. He tells her that he's having fun playing the game with her, and he decides to tell her the truth, saying he was ordered to keep an eye on her. So Miranda becomes upset, thinking Lea is going to burn the city down, but she's actually happy that Fay told her the truth, and she takes a liking to him, calling him a good human. She tells him to be more casual with her, because she wants to enjoy the games with him, and she decides to end the card game, realizing that he wasn't trying to win against her. He admits that he just wanted to get to know her, so he only matched the cards which would give him new information about her. She wonders what he would have asked her if he got the blank card, so he says he wants to know why she isn't returning to the elements, and why she wanted to see him, saying he isn't the strongest apostle. So she explains it's because he got 3 wins in a row despite being a rookie, telling him he's better than the others, so she wants to clear the gods' games with him. She reveals that she went to Earth to play with the humans, but she realized that she can't return to the elements, so she can no longer go back to being a god. But she explains that she can return after she gets 10 wins, saying the gods will grant an apostle's wishes during the celebration. He thinks this is a great reward for clearing the games, but she reminds him that no human has ever achieved this. They head to the dive center, where they enter a gate, which leads them to the next game. They see a group of apostles, and Fay recognizes one of them as Asta, telling her that he has just returned from his vacation. Lea tells them that she will also be participating, so they become surprised, wondering why a former god decided to join them. A strange creature called Meep greets them, saying it's time to begin the game, so the apostles release their drones, allowing everyone to watch them as they play. Meep reveals that there are 18 apostles playing the game, and they know that they're about to play against the god Titan, thinking it's going to be a battle game. But Meep tells them that the Titan has grown tired of fighting, saying they're going to be playing a game called Hide and God Seek. Fay asks Meep about the rules of the game, thinking they just need to escape from the Titan to win. So Meep explains that running will help them win the game, but they can only stay within the play field, and they will lose if the Titan catches all of them. But Meep reveals that they can still lose even if they're able to get away, so Fay realizes that the rules aren't simple. The ground suddenly starts shaking as the Titan arrives, and it strikes a building, causing rubble to fall on the apostles, so they use their powers to defend themselves. But Fay retreats, and Lea asks him why he isn't using his powers, so he reveals that his power only prevents him from dying. A giant rubble is about to crush her, but she casually destroys it, so he becomes impressed, realizing that she has incredible strength, but she tells him she isn't even using her full power. Everyone starts running away as the Titan chases after them. They decide to split up, and Fay's group hides behind the buildings, but he realizes that the Titan knows where they are, so he advises them not to let their guard down. It sees Asta, and it crushes her, but she becomes confused, wondering why she still hasn't been eliminated from the game. But her body turns red, and she suddenly starts attacking the other apostles, so they tell her to stop, but she explains that she can't control her body. Fay realizes that the Titan can control apostles by attacking them, and she hits her companions with her magic, slamming them against the wall. The Titan stomps on one of them, causing his body to turn red, but the others are also affected, so everyone wonders how this happened. Fay decides to retreat with Lea, but the Titan suddenly stops pursuing them, so they become confused, but they see Asta approaching, so they run away, wondering why only half of her body is red. They realize that she isn't out of the game yet, so Fay thinks there's a hidden rule, and they decide to test his theory. They hide in an alley, where Fay covers her upper body, as Lea touches her legs, allowing her to regain control of her body. She realizes that she's no longer on the Titan's side, and this confirms Fay's theory that they can return the apostles to the human side by touching them. But the Titan goes after them, so he tells Asta to hide, as he runs away with Lea, who wonders how they're supposed to win the game. They recall that they can still lose even if they're able to get away, so they start coming up with theories, and Lea realizes that they understand each other because they have a similar mindset. She admits that she's having fun, and he remembers the girl he's looking for, who told him that games are meant to be enjoyed. But he tells Lea that he wants to win, because he hates losing, so they need to find out how to win the game. But the apostles suddenly block their path, as the leader explains that the Titan got all of them, but he tells Fay not to give up, begging him to escape, as the apostles chase after them. They enter a building, where Lea destroys a walkway, allowing them to escape from the apostles. But we learn that there are only 3 players left on the human side, and Lea knows they're in trouble, so she discusses the situation with Fay, telling him that the others have flipped to the Titan's side. Hearing this, Fay comes up with a theory, saying he knows how to win, as he mentions that Hide and God Seek is actually a board game, and Lea understands what he means, so they come up with a plan. But they see the apostles approaching, so they decide to split up. Lea jumps out of the window, as Fay runs to the rooftop, realizing that the Titan is destroying the buildings, so he thinks the game has reached its climax. He faces the Titan, realizing that it used the apostles to lure him there, and it attacks him, so everyone becomes worried. But Lea knows that everything is going according to their plan, and we see that Fay didn't turn to the Titan's side, because his power nullified the attack. He tells the Titan that they already know the victory condition, saying he noticed that they were playing a game of reversi, because the players flipped whenever they got tagged. Lea adds that the meat gave them a clue, because it told them about the play field, realizing that it's square. Fay knows that the game will end once there are no buildings left, because reversi doesn't end until the whole board has one color, and he's standing on the last building, so it's all over once it crumbles. But he explains how the Titan was able to transform several disciples with one attack, saying it's because Asta lined them up together, allowing the Titan to create a chain. He tells the Titan that he was distracting it, as Asta pushes the apostles against a wall, and Lea touches one of them, allowing them to regain control of their bodies. We see that there are more players on the human side, so Fay knows it's game over for the Titan, but it saves him before the building collapses, and it admits defeat. Fay returns to the arcane court, where Miranda tells him that his match received incredible ratings from the public. She asks him about Lea, saying they had excellent teamwork, so he says she's amazing, and Miranda thinks they should continue working together. She reveals that Lea was playing alone while he was gone, because she was so skilled that nobody wanted to play with her, and we learn that Fay had a similar experience when he was a child. Miranda thinks Fay will be able to clear the games with Lea, and she gives him a key card, which he uses to access Lea's room. Fay sees her watching their game, thinking about what they could have done better, and she reveals that she has already watched it 4 times. She asks Fay about his wish, reminding him that the gods will grant their wishes after they clear the games. So he reveals that he wants to find the girl who taught him how to play, saying he doesn't know her name, so he just called her Sis. We learn that he always challenged her, and he never won a single game, but she suddenly disappeared, leaving behind the promise that they will meet again. He considers her as his mentor, thinking he's a skilled player because of her, so he wants to see her again. Lea asks him if he has any clues about her, but he explains that he only remembers her hair, saying it looks similar to Lea's. He asks her if she's connected to his sis, but she reminds him that she was frozen for 3,000 years, so he realizes it's impossible. She looks forward to playing with him again, and he promises to do his best, so that they can clear the games together. Lea tells Miranda that she's going to clear the games with Fay, and she's excited to play with him again, but he explains that they need more apostles to participate in the games. Miranda reveals that at least 10 apostles are needed for each team, because it will increase their odds of winning, saying there's no limit to how many humans can participate, but they'll only be fighting against one god in each game. Lea isn't interested in working with other apostles, but Miranda orders Fay to find teammates, saying he needs to find someone they can get along with. Fay creates an online post as he searches for teammates, and they wait near a booth, saying team applications are digitally managed. But there are times when apostles wish to leave their teams, and they can't tell their teammates about it, so they head to the booth to look for their next team. He reveals that he knows a team captain named Ashlin, and Fay calls him, asking him if he can join them. He knows about Fay's recent victory, thinking he's impressive, so Ashlin welcomes him to the team. But he reveals that Lea is with him, and Ashlin hangs up, so Fay calls him again, asking him why he did that. So he tells Fay that Lea has a bad reputation because she heard a team mocking the gods' games, and she became upset because she used to be a god, so she beat them up and they all ended up in the hospital. Ashlin explains that they can't welcome her into the team, saying it's a shame since she's cute, but he mentions that her chest isn't big enough, so she becomes upset and he ends the call. Fay looks for another team, and he finds one with a good game analyst, explaining that it can help them come up with brilliant strategies. He contacts the team captain named Yuki, asking her if he can join them, so she tells him they'll be happy to have him. But he explains that Lea is with him, and Yuki suddenly panics, and she hangs up as well. He asks Lea why Yuki is so afraid of her, and she explains that she's innocent, but Fay calls her a liar, saying he can tell that she's flustered. So she reveals that she fought against Yuki during a practice match, but back then, she didn't know how to hold back, and she ended up sending Yuki to the hospital. She explains that she tried to visit Yuki while she was recovering, but she became so frightened that she passed out. Fay thinks they won't be able to find a team because everyone hates Lea, but she explains that she just wanted to learn more about humans, so she tried to interact with them. He thinks they should form a new team, so they need to look for people to join them, thinking they need someone with useful skills. He sees a girl named Pearl as she enters through a portal, realizing that she can teleport, and he thinks her power is amazing, so he considers inviting her to join his team. But she heads to the booth, and she reveals that she wants to resign as an apostle, but Lea burns her resignation letter, so she becomes upset, wondering why Lea stopped her. But she recognizes Lea and Fay, and she becomes embarrassed, saying she'll make it up to them by retiring. But Fay explains that they want to stop her from doing this, saying they want her in their team. But she refuses, so he tells her that he'll treat her to a parfait if she listens to him, and she immediately changes her mind. Pearl introduces herself, as she mentions that her record is 1 win and 1 loss, but Fay wonders why she wants to retire, because she only lost once. So he looks for her data, as he notes that apostles are treated like celebrities, so everyone wants to be like them. But he knows that everyone forgets about them after they lose 3 times, and this is why the apostles train hard to complete the games, but he wonders why Pearl has already given up. He sees her profile, asking her why she's retiring, so she reveals that her team lost because of her. We learn that during the last game, the goal was to protect the leader, but as she was being hunted down, she accidentally switched places with the team captain, causing them to lose the game. She reveals that she can swap places with people and teleport anything with her powers, but she hates herself, thinking she let her team down. She thinks her power to swap places isn't useful because she can only use it on someone she just touched, revealing that she hasn't mastered her powers yet. But Lea tells her it's okay to make mistakes, saying she won't blame Pearl if they end up losing, as she invites Pearl to play with her. But Pearl says she has already decided to retire, and she teleports away, so Lea thinks they should let her go, but Fay suggests looking into her, because he doesn't want her to be scared of playing games. They decide to visit Pearl's dorm, but they realize it isn't locked, thinking she must have moved out, so Fay starts looking for her, but he sees her getting changed. Lea sees this, realizing that Pearl's body is better than hers, so she lunges at Pearl, wanting to have her body. Pearl explains that she's been using portals to enter her room, so she never thought about locking the door. She reveals that she became an apostle last year, and she always looked up to Fay, thinking she's going to hold him back, because he's too good to be her teammate. He sees gifts in her room, so she explains that she plans to give it to her teammates to make up for what she did, saying they all blame her for their loss. But Lea tells her that they shouldn't behave that way, because games are meant to be enjoyed. Fay advises her to redeem herself, and he tells her that the 3 of them will be joining her old team in the next game, saying she shouldn't give up too soon, because she can still play the gods' games. Pearl appears to be hesitating, so he tells her to try playing with him, saying he won't stop her from leaving after the game ends, and she's moved by his passion, so she decides to follow his advice. After some time, we see Fay and the others preparing for the next game with Pearl's old team, as Miranda reveals that she broke the rules to make this possible, so they need to make it up to her by winning. Pearl becomes nervous, so Fay tells her that this is her chance to redeem herself, and they enter the gate together. But they realize that they're falling from the sky, and a massive creature suddenly appears, and Fay recognizes it as the god of despair named Oroboros, which is so powerful that it remains undefeated to this day. Pearl thinks she's going to fall to her death, but Lea uses her powers to slow down their descent, and they're about to land on Oroboros, but they end up crashing into its horn, so they scream in pain. They walk around its body, and they see the other apostles led by their captain Orvin, who tells Fay that one of his companions was eaten by a flying whale, which is known as a leviathan. Orvin explains that leviathans are waiting for them to fall off Oroboros so that it can eat them, and his companions start to despair, thinking they're going to fail, but he tells them not to lose hope. Meep suddenly appears, and it tells them that they must get Oroboros to say a forbidden word to win the game, but Meep refuses to tell them what it is, saying they need to figure it out. They start exploring the area, and they realize that Oroboros is massive, as Orvin reveals that it's the largest god in existence, thinking they can find the clue if they reach its head. But they're suddenly surrounded by lightning, and Meep tells them that they need to say the forbidden word to escape. So they try to guess the word, and Meep gives them a clue, saying they already mentioned it before, as the lightning intensifies, so they realize they're running out of time. But Fay says ouch, and the lightning disappears, as everyone recalls that they all screamed in pain when they landed on Oroboros. But they realize that they will die if they stay there, so they decide to run away. They start to wonder how they can get Oroboros to say ouch, because they aren't sure if it can speak human language, but Fay thinks they just need to make it scream in pain. So the apostles try using their powers to inflict damage, but it doesn't do anything. So Lea decides to use her powers, and she hits Oroboros with everything she has. But it creates a powerful shockwave, which blows the apostles away, and one of them ends up getting eaten. She immediately apologizes for this, but Orvin mentions that it still wasn't enough to hurt Oroboros. Fay reminds everyone that it's a game of wits, and Meep mentions that there are hidden rules, saying something interesting is going to happen after they meet a certain condition. Pearl realizes that the leviathans are surrounding them, so she's terrified, and she clings to Fay, but Lea becomes upset, reminding her that she needs to prove her worth to her old teammates. So she's determined to do her best, and they decide to search the area. They reach the tail of Oroboros, and they see scales which look suspicious, because the color is different. Pearl thinks it's the weak point, so she decides to attack it, but a horn activates, and it fires laser beams, which end up hitting 4 apostles. Orvin blames her for their deaths, but Fay explains that they have to experiment, because there's still much they need to learn about the game, so they shouldn't blame each other for their mistakes. He realizes that Oroboros will fight back if they attack its tail, thinking it's the key to clearing the game, and he thinks about the hidden rule. But the other apostles fall into despair, thinking they don't stand a chance, because Oroboros has never been defeated. Orvin reminds them that they have companions who have already lost twice, so they can't afford to fail, and they start blaming Pearl for their past failures, seeing her as a burden. But Lea becomes upset, threatening to kill them, and they explain that they're just mentioning facts, but she tells them they're missing the point, saying they're supposed to be enjoying the game. They think she's nuts, but she knows that Fay is having fun, and he's thinking about the laser beams, thinking it wasn't designed to get rid of them. So he comes up with a plan, saying he's going to make Oroboros angry again, and he warns Orvin that they're going to suffer casualties, but he promises to secure victory for everyone. He orders Lea to attack the scales, so she hits it with everything she has, and it fires an enormous laser beam, which instantly eliminates Orvin's team. But Lea protects her friends with a barrier, and the leviathans start attacking Oroboros. So Fay realizes that they're neutral monsters, and they felt threatened by the laser beam, so they're trying to fight back. Fay and his friends ride the leviathans, realizing this is the hidden rule that Meep mentioned, and they see the eyes of Oroboros, thinking it's the weak point. But it starts firing laser beams, destroying the leviathans, as Fay notes that the opposite eye will attack if they approach one side. Fay comes up with a plan, and Pearl thinks he's insane, but he explains that it's the only way to win. He keeps Oroboros distracted, as Lea launches a devastating attack, and she almost manages to destroy one of its eyes, but she ends up getting hit. Fay charges in, and he tries to destroy the eye, but it prepares to fire a laser beam, so he gives the signal, and Pearl teleports him away. Oroboros ends up shooting its own eye, so it screams in pain, as everyone celebrates, knowing the apostles were able to win. Orvin's team is overjoyed to see this, knowing Pearl and her friends were able to secure victory for them, so they think she's amazing. Oroboros appears as a girl, and she admits defeat, giving Fay a piece of her eye, as she mentions that it's his reward, because this is the first time she lost in a game. She explains that he can use it to draw her, saying she wants to play with him again, and she promises to come up with a harder game next time. We see a girl named Nell as she plays a game against a god, but she ends up losing, and she wakes up, realizing that she still can't let go of her unfulfilled dreams, because she's no longer an apostle. She sees Fay playing against Oroboros, recognizing him as the best rookie, and she thinks he's brilliant, so she wants to join him. At the arcane court building, we see that Lea is upset, because she can't play a game. Miranda explains that the gates are fully booked because Fay inspired the apostles in their branch to play the gods' games by scoring a victory against the undefeated Oroboros. Lea isn't happy to hear this, and she decides to steal a gate, as Fay warns Miranda that she might go berserk, so they need to keep her entertained. So Miranda invites them to join the World Games Tour, saying their branch has been receiving offers after Oroboros was defeated, because the world sees Fay as a hero. But Miranda explains that they received offers from multiple cities, and they can't decide their destination, so Pearl uses a dart to pick one, and she hits the sacred spring city called Maura. We see Fay and his friends riding a train, as Pearl thinks about the apostles who retired, saying she respects them, because she knows they're using their powers to help society. The next day, they reach their destination, but they're surprised to see Nell welcoming them to the city, thinking she looks suspicious. So they decide to run away, but she uses her super speed to stop them, and she introduces herself as a former apostle. She reveals that she wants to serve Fay, saying she's willing to do anything to please him, but he feels ashamed, knowing they're making a scene, and she begs him to accept her, but he suddenly disappears. She realizes he's trying to escape, so she runs after him, but a car is about to hit her, so she uses her powers to kick it away, but she realizes that she made a mess. They head to the arcane court building in the city, and the apostles recognize them, knowing they're the ones who defeated Oroboros. A strange man suddenly approaches Pearl, so she freaks out, thinking he's a pervert, but he introduces himself as Belgar, saying he's the chief secretary, and he welcomes them to the Maura branch. He shows them around the building, and he tells them about the World Games Tour, saying the main event is a gods game that will be played in 3 days. He reveals that they rented a sports stadium for the event, so 10,000 people will be watching them as they play. But before the gods game, they will be playing a friendly match with the apostles of Maura, who want to test their skills against them. They reach a gallery, where Belgar shows them pictures from last year's event, saying they had guests from other cities. Lea notices a group wearing black uniforms, and we learn that only the best apostles get to wear them. Belgar adds that the gold embroidery means they're from the Arcane Court headquarters, but an apostle named Dax approaches them, saying he has never seen those uniforms before. He knows that Fay's group is from the Ruin branch because of the blue trim on their uniforms, and he reveals that he has heard of them, wondering if they're good at playing games. Belgar reveals that he's the representative of the Maura branch, saying he has established his own team as a rookie, and he has a record of 3 wins and 1 loss. He knows about Fay's recent victories, thinking he's impressive, so Dax invites him to join his team, saying he's trying to gather the best rookies in the world, so that they can clear the gods' games together. But Fay explains that he's only there for the World Games Tour, so Dax decides to leave. That evening, Fay reveals that he's been watching how the apostles of Maura play, and Nell caught his attention, saying her record is 3 wins and 3 losses, so she's no longer allowed to play the gods' games. But he mentions that she's an excellent player, and she only lost because of her teammates, who gave up as soon as they realized they were at a disadvantage. Fay realizes why she approached him, so he regrets running away from her, and at that moment, the doorbell rings, so Pearl opens the door. But they immediately recognize Nell, telling her she's doing a terrible job at hiding her identity, so she quickly runs away, but we learn that Fay wanted to talk to her. Nell wonders why she ran away, and Dax sees her, revealing that he once considered her as his rival, and he knows she's talented, but she was forced to retire because of her teammates. He wants her to join his team, thinking she can use her skills to help them as their analyst, but she explains that she wants to join Fay's team instead, saying she's expecting him to win against Dax. The next day, everyone gathers at the stadium, and Nell approaches Fay, telling him that Dax is going to be his opponent. She thinks he's going to have a hard time, but she tells him to win, saying she'll be cheering for him, and Lea finds her strange, but he's glad she's there to support him. Everyone's excited for the game, and Fay enters with his friends, as Dax mentions that he's going to fight with everything he has. Fay realizes that he's more passionate than he looks, and he mentions that he wants the game to be fair, so he tells the operator to start a random game. The arena lights up, as Fay notes that it's using an augmented reality image, and several platforms appear, as he realizes that they're going to be playing Sugoku, which is a card strategy game. We learn that they have never played it before, so Dax thinks the fight is going to be fair, and he introduces everyone to his partner named Kelrich, telling Fay to pick a friend he wants to play with. He chooses Pearl as his partner, and the operator explains that the players can win the game by reaching the goal or reducing an enemy's life to 0. We learn that the players get to pick a class, and the operator gives them their starting cards, explaining that they can be used to attack, recover, or trigger a special effect, and the cards used during the battle will be placed in the team's storage. Fay notes that he has a special card which only a healer can use, and he checks Pearl's cards, realizing that she can use an interesting spell when she's about to die. They discuss their strategy, and they think about using the Traveler and Healer classes, planning to reach the goal to secure victory, but they consider using the Wizard class, which is ideal for dealing damage. But Fay mentions that their hand is filled with recovery magic, so he picks the Traveler class, and Pearl decides to become a healer. Dax and Kelrich both choose the Wizard class, so Fay already knows what they're planning to do. The operator explains that the players can move up to 6 squares each turn, and they can draw 2 magic cards if they step on a golden square, while the silver square will only allow them to draw 1 card. But the red square is a trap zone, and it will deal 7 damage to whoever steps on it. The game begins, and Fay chooses to move 6 squares, so Dax asks him why he didn't choose to advance further, knowing the Traveler class can move up to 7 squares. He realizes that Fay did it to prevent him from drawing a card, and Fay wonders if he can trade cards with Pearl, so the operator explains that he can't, but there's a magic card which can produce similar results, so he ends his turn. Dax also moves 6 squares, and he uses a card called Burning Rhythm, which increases the damage received by all players. Kelrich uses an attack spell, which deals 1 damage to her opponents, but we see that Fay and Pearl received 4 damage, because the Wizard class gives an additional 1 damage to attack cards, and the Burning Rhythm further increased the damage by 2 points. Kelrich uses another spell called Chains of Malice, which affects everyone in the game, and it causes them to receive damage whenever they use a card. Pearl uses a fire spell, which deals 3 damage to Dax, but she ends up receiving 2 damage because of the Chains of Malice. Dax counters with an ice spell, and Pearl realizes she's at a disadvantage, but Kelrich follows up with a lightning spell, which reduces her health to 1. She tries to heal herself, but Dax activates his trap card, which nullifies her healing magic, and Kelrich reminds her that she's about to die because of the Chains of Malice. But Fay manages to save her just in time, and he moves closer to the goal, using an attack spell which deals 5 damage to Dax. He follows up with a card called Soul Sacrifice, which allows him to heal his team by removing a card from his hand, and Pearl uses a spell to restore her health, bringing her back up to 10. She uses another card to protect herself with a barrier, but Kelrich tells her it's useless, as she uses an attack spell to destroy it. She uses another card called Resource Equality, which leaves everyone with 4 cards, and she leaves a timed spell on the field, before ending her turn. Dax steps on a red square, activating a trap, but he uses a card to transfer the damage to Pearl, knowing it's enough to reduce her health to 0, but Fay saves her once again. Dax realizes he's getting in the way, so he uses a spell to prevent Fay from using another card. Kelrich activates her timed spell, which deals damage to everyone, and Pearl realizes she's about to die, so she uses a card called Last Dance, allowing her to survive until the end of her turn. She knows this is her last chance to secure victory for the team, so she uses a spell called Life Pulse, which increases her life to 11, and she uses all of her attack spells on Dax. But he manages to survive by transferring the damage to Kelrich, saying it's all over for Pearl, because she's going to lose all of her life points once her turn ends. But she activates her final spell, which allows her to take 1 card from her team's storage, and we see that it's the special card Fay had at the beginning of the game. We learn that he placed it in the storage when he used Soul Sacrifice, and his opponents realize that he had everything planned out. He reveals that his team's plan is to reduce Dax's life to 0, but their hands were filled with healing magic, so they decided to outsmart their opponents by deceiving them. Pearl activates her final spell, which deals 20 damage to Dax, reducing his life to 0, so Fay's team is declared as the winner, but Dax is thrilled, recognizing Fay as his rival. He looks forward to playing with Fay again, saying he will continue to improve until he's able to defeat his rival. The crowd cheers for him, and Pearl wonders why the losers are so happy, but Fay thinks it's because they had fun. Lea decides to buy games after the match, and the seller warns her they're expensive, but she shows him her unlimited credit card. The man is shocked, and gives her everything she wants, as Fay asks her not to overuse it, so Lea agrees to stop after buying a few games. Pearl buys food to reward herself for performing well in the last game, and a group of girls suddenly approaches, asking for a photo with Lea. Pearl and Fay are surprised seeing this, because people are usually afraid of her, and Pearl mentions that she's cute, thinking the girls don't know how dangerous she is. Another group of girls approach Fay, asking for his autograph, as they tell him he's an amazing player, and he realizes he has plenty of fans. Pearl realizes how famous they are, and remembers that she was the main player of the last game, so she's excited, thinking she will also be recognized, but no one approaches her, leaving her depressed. They finally finish talking to the fans, and Fay mentions that he isn't used to giving autographs. But Lea asks for his autograph, because she wants to experience human culture, but he mentions that she doesn't have paper, so he suggests signing when they return to their city. But she wants it now, and she tells him to sign on a ribbon, saying it would be special to her after he signs it. He blushes hearing this, but he signs the ribbon, as Lea mentions that she will keep it as her treasure. Pearl returns, asking them what they're doing, so Fay tells her what happened, as Nell watches them from a distance. They notice a huge crowd forming, and they see Dax surrounded by his fans. Pearl realizes they're filming a show called Lunching with Dax, which is a live broadcast of him eating, and thousands of people find this entertaining. Pearl mentions that the show is extremely profitable, and Kelrich suddenly joins the conversation, saying it's successful because of Dax's popularity. She starts praising him, but she assures everyone that they're just business partners, and she has no feelings for him. But she excuses herself, and she joins his fans, as she takes pictures of him. Fay calls Nell, and she's surprised that he noticed her. She approaches him, and she offers her help as a game analyst, because she wants to help his team. But he immediately refuses, so she offers to serve them as their maid instead, but Lea tells her they don't need one. So she loses hope, and she's about to head out, but Fay stops her, telling her he has other plans for her, and he invites her to a meeting. They go to the Arcane Court, where Belgar talks about the next battle against the gods, explaining that the headquarters selected 12 apostles from their branch to help in the game. Nell interrupts them, wondering why she's there, so he explains that Fay asked to let her observe the game. She asks Fay why he invited her to join the meeting, since he hasn't revealed anything else, so he mentions that a teammate should stay close to their companions, telling her to support them. Lea gets excited, and she drags Pearl to the gate, as Nell wishes them luck. They reach a vast desert, where Dax and Kelrich appear, and they reveal that they will also participate in the game. They meet the other members, as a woman named Camilla introduces herself as the team leader, but Dax interrupts her and explains that they're only there to make up the numbers. He suddenly admits that it's Fay's turn to shine, so it's not his time to speak, but he declares that he's still his rival and wants to see what he can do. He tells the god to start the game, and the ground starts shaking as a pyramid emerges. Meep greets them, and he gives a blue flower to each of them before starting the game, saying they need to take care of it or they'll be disqualified. He explains the rules, and reveals that the flowers have 3 different colors. The golden one is the sunflower, and the black one is the poison flower. The teams have one of each, and they also have normal flowers. The objective of the game is to offer the golden flower to the top of the pyramid, and Fay realizes that the distance to the pyramid is 3 kilometers, thinking it sounds easy. But Meep explains that the enemy team will try to steal their flowers during the game, and they discover that their enemies are cats. Pearl finds them cute, but she realizes they're enormous sand golems. Meep explains that if a player manages to steal a cat's flower, the cat will be eliminated, but if a cat steals the golden flower, the entire team is going to lose. The gods team also has a golden flower, so the players can win by stealing it. The normal flowers don't affect the outcome of the game, but if a player steals a poison flower, his team will be stunned for 5 seconds, putting them at a disadvantage. Fay sees that he has a normal flower, as Pearl reveals that she has the golden one, and Calrich has the poison flower. Meep explains that they can swap flowers and devise their strategy, so Fay goes through the victory conditions with the others, explaining that the game is basically a race, where the cats will try to hinder their progress. Fay thinks about giving the golden flower to Lea because she has the physical ability to escape the cats. But he realizes it would be too obvious, and he also needs to choose who will keep the poison flower. He asks the others if they have superhuman physical abilities, and they're taken aback when Calrich reveals that she has. They ask Meep if they can swap flowers during the test, and he explains that a player must always have a flower or they will be disqualified immediately, but a player can sacrifice himself by throwing his flower to another teammate. Dax thinks Fay should be the one to decide who holds the flowers, and Camilla is surprised that he said that. He remembers that he lost his bet with Nell because he lost his game against Fay, so he has to support him as part of the deal. Camilla gives Fay the data of the other players so that he can devise his strategy, and he asks everyone to give him their flowers so that he can distribute it according to his plan. He finishes distributing the flowers to his teammates, and he asks everyone to keep the type of flower a secret so that it will be harder for the enemy team to gather information. The god descends from the sky and lands on top of the pyramid. He uses telepathy and introduces himself as Matama as a flower appears in his hand, and they think he has the sunflower. He announces that the game is about to begin, but Fay and Lea suddenly declare that they have the golden flower. The others are watching, and Nell thinks that both the poison flower and the golden flower are with them, but Belgar believes this could be a bluff. Fay's team is confused, wondering what he's thinking, as Dax admits he wants to see his plan. Meep gives the signal to start, and everyone runs towards the pyramid as the cats appear, and Pearl admires their cuteness again, but hundreds of them start coming out of the sand. Matama reveals that there are over 1,000 cats against the 15 players in the match, and hopes that they play fair, but they wonder how this could be considered fair. Calrich passes by everyone, and they notice she hasn't even activated her power yet. Fay notices that the cats are running at 60 kilometers an hour, so they need to think of something before the cats reach them. But a mage cat appears out of nowhere and casts a sandstorm, which almost catches Calrich, blocking their path. They try to think of a plan, but some of the cats have already reached the players, and part of their team is eliminated. A player tries to attack, but the cat regenerates its body, and it takes the player out. Camilla casts an ice spell, freezing the cats, and Dax summons a hurricane, which sweeps the cats away. Pearl tries to dodge a cat, but it uses its claws to tear her clothes, leaving her embarrassed. She gets caught by a cat, and she's about to get eliminated, but Calrich arrives to save her. The apostles are eliminated, as the cats surround them, so Lea uses her powers to strike the ground, and the cats fall into the abyss. Calrich thinks her powers are scary, and Fay tells her to be careful so she doesn't hear. They see an oasis, so Camilla wonders why it's there, but more cats start chasing them. So Lea uses her powers again, but this time the cats jump over the chasm, and one of the apostles try to burn them, but they block his magic with a shield. The cats catch Camilla, and she decides to sacrifice herself to delay them with her ice, leaving only 5 players. Calrich wonders why Dax isn't hiding his flower, but he thinks it's better to keep it in hand in case he needs to swap with someone. Another sandstorm suddenly appears, so Pearl uses her portal and tries to save him, but he's caught by the storm and ends up getting eliminated. Calrich is furious, and Fay tries to stop her, but she decides to delay the cats because she doesn't have the golden flower. So Lea offers to help her, revealing that she doesn't have the golden flower either. They split into 2 teams, with one aiming for the goal as the other delays the cats. We cut to Camilla, who apologizes to Belgar, but he praises her, and he thinks Fay must have the golden flower as they head towards the pyramid. Dax finds Nell and informs her that he fulfilled his bet, so everything is now in Fay's hands. We return to the game as Fay and Pearl reach the pyramid, and Matama challenges them to finish the game. He calls more cats, so Fay tries to run, but he gets grabbed by them. He realizes he's about to get eliminated, so he throws his flower to Pearl, and Matama thinks it's the sunflower. She keeps climbing and uses her powers to teleport above Matama before mentioning that there's another way to win. She punches his staff and manages to steal his flower, but she discovers it's the poison flower, so she ends up getting stunned. He reveals that his golden flower is hidden in the oasis, thinking it's the best place to hide a flower. He retrieves the flowers from Pearl, but discovers she doesn't have the golden flower, and he notices that Lea and Kelrich are far from the pyramid, so he's confused. Fay suddenly shows the golden flower, revealing that he had 2 flowers the entire time, because Dax had secretly given the flower to him through Pearl's portal, and he was caught in the sandstorm on purpose to hide the transfer. Matama is impressed, but he tells Fay that he won't let him pass, when he suddenly gets stunned. Lea mentions that he forgot about the poison flower, revealing that she had it with her, and she let one of the cats take it. Matama thinks Fay won't reach the top of the pyramid on time, but Kelrich appears, and she uses her super strength, launching Fay to the top, and he places the flower at the top of the pyramid, securing victory for the team. Matama acknowledges his defeat and congratulates them, awarding Fay with a golden flower. After the game, Fay approaches Nell, asking her what she wants, so she admits that she wants to be an apostle again. Fay accepts this, saying there might be a way for her to do that, but Belgar warns Fay that it's risky, saying it hasn't been attempted in years, but Fay wants to try it anyway. They talk to Miranda, and she introduces them to a unique god called the Bookmaker. Winning against a normal god increases their victory count, but defeating the Bookmaker reduces a player's losses, and someone must bet a victory to challenge him. Fay volunteers to offer one of his victories to help Nell, and Miranda tries to refuse, because his victories are too valuable. But Lea explains that it's already been decided, reminding her that the gods smile upon those who create their own miracles. At night, we see Fay thinking about his strategy, and he's confident about his next match against the Bookmaker. They travel back to the ruin branch, and Nell is nervous, so Pearl pulls her out of her thoughts. She apologizes for not paying attention, and Fay explains more about the Bookmaker, revealing that the match will be a one-on-one battle. Their goal is to reduce Nell's loss count by betting Fay's victories so that she can return as an apostle. Nell feels uncomfortable with this plan, but he doesn't seem worried, so they scold him for not taking it seriously. She reveals that the chance of someone winning against the gods is only 1%, so it's incredible that he has 6 victories, thinking he's their best chance of winning the games. But Fay reassures her, and guarantees that they have a chance against the Bookmaker. Pearl thinks he has a plan, but he admits that he doesn't, since he has never faced the Bookmaker. Lea declares that she's confident in Nell, but she puts more pressure on her, by telling her there's no way Nell can lose after they canceled the world tour for this challenge, and invested so much time in her, so she ends up fainting. They arrive at the ruin branch, and Miranda welcomes them, congratulating them for their amazing performance during the world tour. Nell apologizes for the trouble, and offers a gift as an apology. Miranda explains that they have no choice now, and tells her they can play against the Bookmaker the next day. The girls go to the female dormitory, and Pearl throws a welcome party for Nell, to celebrate her entry into the group, as Lea just falls asleep in Pearl's bed immediately. Nell thanks her for the reception, but Pearl is grateful to have another ordinary person in the group, because she always felt out of place while she's around Fay and Lea. The next day, Miranda explains that the cameras won't work in the Bookmaker's realm, so she can't help them during the match. The group enters the Bookmaker's realm, finding themselves in a dark room, with a poker table in the center. A voice reveals that this realm is a manifestation of Nell's unconsciousness, and the darkness of the room represents her insecurity. They notice that the Bookmaker looks exactly like Nell, as she explains that she's the polymorphic goddess, introducing herself as Grimore, and the Bookmaker is just one of her pseudonyms. Fay asks about the rules of the game before starting, and mentions that he would bet 3 of his victories on Nell. The girls are shocked by this, but Fay insists that it's fine, and this way, she won't have any more losses. They seek Lea's help, but she agrees with Fay's bet. Grimore seems pleased, and she chooses poker for the challenge, because it has been a long time since she was last challenged. Nell and Grimore each receive 5 coins to bet, and they also receive 5 cards, able to discard the ones they don't want. In the first round, they both discard 3 cards, and Fay thinks both have a double pair, but Lea notes that Nell has a weak hand. Grimore tells Nell to bet, so she raises the bet by 1 coin. But Grimore goes all in, making her nervous, and she deduces that it isn't a bluff, because a god wouldn't risk ending the game in the first round without reason. She folds, revealing that she avoided an instant loss and is left with 3 coins. They go to the second round, and Nell receives a weak hand again, so she decides to discard 4 cards. Grimore discards only 1, so Nell thinks she has a strong hand and gets nervous. She raises the bet by only 1 coin, but Grimore matches her. Nell realizes that she wants her to bet all her coins, and she decides to fold again so that she can have a chance at another round. But she discovers that Grimore was bluffing and could have recovered her coins if she had matched the bet. She wonders why she only discarded 1 card with a bad hand, but Grimore explains that she already knew she would fold. Grimore mentions that Nell had no intention of winning from the start and was only trying to not waste Fay's victories out of fear, warning her she won't be able to win if she doesn't risk anything. The third round begins, and Nell has only 1 coin. She decides to discard only 1 card, but she doesn't draw anything good and becomes terrified. So Grimore reveals her hand, and the game ends with a score of 3-0. Grimore blames her for overthinking the weight of defeat, and Nell can't bear it, so she faints in front of everyone. Grimore is upset by the disappointing game, so she takes 3 of Fay's victories and tells them to go home. But Fay suddenly declares that this was part of his plan, challenging her to another game, betting 3 more of his victories. He thanks Nell for trying, and Grimore accepts his challenge. So she alters the room and welcomes them to the Casino of the Gods, which reflects Fay's mind. Grimore changes her appearance, and she sets the rules for their challenge, saying the name of the game will be 3 cheats. She explains that she will cheat in 3 games using the same method, and Fay's objective is to discover how she cheated. To be fair, she asks for the help of his friends, and Lea seems to like the idea. Grimore explains how she will cheat to them, but Lea laughs, surprising the others. The first game is just a coin toss, and Grimore explains the process. Nell is chosen as the first dealer, and she uses her feet to toss the coin, as Fay chooses a side. But he can't detect the cheat, and the coin lands on the opposite side of what he chose, so he loses. Fay reassures Nell, saying it wasn't her fault, and urges Grimore to move on to the next game. The second game is a single round of poker, with Lea acting as the dealer, as Fay notes that the first round depends only on luck. She shows the new cards before shuffling the deck, and she deals 5 cards to the players. Fay gets a good hand, a double pair with an ace, and Grimore wishes him luck, but Fay decides to swap his entire hand, thinking it's the best way to reveal the cheat. He shows his new cards, and Grimore reveals her hand, a straight flush, which surprises Fay, because he couldn't detect any sign of cheating during the game. He thinks of a power that would help her win both games, and suspects that the coin could be influenced by object manipulation, but it doesn't explain the straight flush in the first hand. Lea pushes Pearl to be the final dealer, so she deals the cards, and the name of the game is Old Maid. The game begins, and Grimore takes the joker from Fay's hand. He manages to form a pair, and calculates a 66% chance of winning, thinking all he needs to do is not pick the joker again. He chooses a card from Grimore, but is shocked to see the joker, and he loses the match. The 3 games end, and Grimore asks Fay if he knows how she cheated. He challenges her to a final game of Old Maid, saying he's going to win this time because he has figured out the trick. She thinks it's a bluff, but decides to play, so they go for a final round, and to her surprise, Fay avoids the cheat and manages to win. He reveals that the cheat is having the help of his friends, explaining that she manipulated the cards using Pearl's powers. So he waited for the time when Pearl's power would lose its effect on the deck to win, and he also explains how they cheated in the other games. Grimore seems satisfied with the game and fulfills the bet, erasing all 3 of Nell's losses. As the game ends, Grimore asks why Fay did this, since he lost 3 victories. So he explains that he calculated everything from the beginning, and he actually wanted to equalize their victories so that everyone could clear the gods' games together. Grimore thanks him for the match and wishes them luck completing the gods' game. Back in the office, everyone celebrates their victory against Grimore and welcomes Nell to the group. They go to report to Miranda, but she reveals a problem and explains that 200 players were forced into an enormous labyrinth. The game doesn't allow them to leave, because they must fulfill the conditions first, but it's been 57 hours since the game started, and they still haven't returned, because the labyrinth has a respawn system, which traps them inside. She assigns their team to a rescue operation, and Nell asks about the game, as it seems that the gods are granting humans a victory without a condition to lose. But Miranda explains that the only problem is that the game is incredibly difficult, so they might be trapped there forever. Fay wonders why the apostles were forced to participate, and before entering the game, Miranda explains that they can rescue the apostles by completing the labyrinth or by finding a salvation item. She apologizes for bothering them after facing the Bookmaker, but she explains that it's an emergency and she wishes them luck. They enter the game and see two difficulty options. Lea and Fay choose the hardest mode called the player must die, but Pearl and Nell freak out and choose the easy mode. Pearl wonders why Fay did this, so he tells her that there might be a secret to winning in the hard mode. Before the game starts, a number is displayed on top of their heads, and they're soon transported to the labyrinth. They realize that it seems like a relaxing place, and Pearl notices the fruit trees, as Fay agrees to take a break, so they rest under a tree. Pearl tries to pick an apple, but she's suddenly attacked by it, and she gets knocked out, so this activates the respawn. On the other side, Grimore wonders how long it will take for another human to challenge her, and Oroboros suddenly invades her domain, asking her about Fay. The team goes deeper into the labyrinth, and they start to understand the game. Pearl mentions that the same trick won't work twice, but Fay reminds her that she has been caught by this trick several times. Pearl ignores this and encourages everyone to resume their adventure, but she's hit by an apple from behind, and they return to the starting point again. They come across a giant hole, so Lea tries to analyze it, saying there's nothing inside. Fay believes it's only there to affect their mentality, and decides to proceed, ignoring the hole. They reach the main building of the labyrinth, and Meep congratulates them on completing the tutorial. He explains the rules of the game, and their objective is to defeat the final boss at the end of the labyrinth, which is filled with monsters. But he reveals that the labyrinth also contains useful items, and they can combine 2 items to create another one. Each player can carry only 2 items at a time, and when a player dies, everyone returns to the starting point, losing everything they acquired, and starting the game all over again. Meep explains that the number on their heads will gradually increase as they explore the labyrinth, and to return to their world, they must defeat the final boss, or obtain the salvation item. Meep tells them a legend, saying a god built the labyrinth, but no one managed to conquer it, so she died of boredom. Pearl thinks it's a terrible story, but Meep ignores her, and welcomes them to the divine labyrinth. The labyrinth looks like a castle, and they encounter strange furry creatures that Pearl finds cute. She decides to call them puffs, and they suddenly jump on her, but she takes no damage. They suddenly flee, leaving materials behind, and she picks them up as she sees the option to create an item. So she merges the materials, creating a wooden shield, which increases the number on her head. They spot a rare golden puff, and Lea thinks it will drop a rare item. Pearl tries to approach it, but it gets angry, and it suddenly grows, eliminating them with a fire attack. They return to the beginning, and are greeted by Meep again, as Lea mentions that she feels weaker inside the labyrinth, thinking it's due to the difficulty she chose. They decide to try again, planning to defeat the golden puff this time. Lea plans to use a hostage, but Nell has an idea, and asks the others to stay back. The golden puff appears, and attacks with its magical fire, but Nell uses her powers to reflect the attack, and she's able to defeat it. It drops a key, and she's excited to advance to the next room, but she's suddenly hit by an apple, and they return to the beginning. Fay notes that everything in the labyrinth resets after their elimination, and concludes that they must avoid even the smallest mistakes to clear the labyrinth. Nell is depressed, but he thinks the worst thing they can do is blame someone for mistakes, and encourages the team by saying each failure is a chance to learn. They experiment with the crafting system, and they're able to create several items, but most seem useless. They continue, and Fay suddenly hears footsteps, finding his superior Ashlin trying to clear the labyrinth. He decides to form an alliance with his team and share information, so Ashlin mentions that he found a locked room, but they only have half of a key. Nell gives them the other half, so Ashlin combines the items and creates a key. They enter the room, but the door closes, so Ashlin uses their items to check for traps in the execution room and discovers it's safe. They find it strange, because the room is empty, but they feel breathing coming from a corner. Fay deduces that the boss might be sleeping, so he decides to use their items to wake it up. Fay and Lea use their items together, and light suddenly falls from the ceiling, killing everyone in an instant. They prepare for a second attempt, creating magic reflection shields to counter the attack. They decide to give it a try, but their shields don't work, so they still end up dying. They lose several times, and Fay asks Nell to reflect the attack using her powers, so she gives it a try, but she gets overwhelmed, and everyone gets killed. They begin to lose hope, but Fay has an idea, and decides to use the umbrella they created, noting that it's like a rain of attacks. They try again, and the umbrella withstands the attack, so they celebrate, but the main boss finally appears. Lea tries to attack it, but she only deals 1 damage to it, and the others attack with their powers, but they also deal 1 damage. Ashlin uses an item to analyze the boss, and discovers it has more than 2 million HP, so it would be impossible to defeat it at this rate. The lion attacks, but they're able to dodge, and they realize that the boss takes damage whenever it attacks, so they think they just need to survive until its health reaches 0. They keep provoking it and avoiding the attacks, but on the final blow, one of them becomes exhausted. But Nell steps in to save her, blocking the boss's attack, and it finally dies. Pearl hugs Nell and gives her the item left by the boss called the Resurrection Bell. Fay warns them it's a trap, but they end up ringing the bell unintentionally, and they see the boss resurrecting. But Oroboros suddenly invades the labyrinth and lands on top of the boss, explaining that she was looking for Fay's group the entire time. She declares that the Bookmaker erased her only defeat, so she's undefeated again, and she demands a rematch. But the boss interrupts her, so she gets angry and punches it, killing it with a single hit. The group is stunned by her strength, as a sword drops from the defeated monster, and it's the salvation item that allows them to leave the labyrinth. Oroboros wonders why they're so happy, explaining that it's just a checkpoint that doesn't help them win the game, and she reveals that the game has no end. Fay realizes that the game has a bug, and he shares that players are always facing the gods in the other games, but according to Meep's story, the god has already died of boredom. Lea understands what he means, and Fay concludes that the god herself is the final boss, but it will be impossible to finish the game if she's already dead. Everyone is shocked, and Fay suggests that the other players return to Earth and inform Miranda about everything, while he and his team stay in the labyrinth to confirm their suspicions about the final boss. The players use the salvation item to leave the game, and the labyrinth suddenly transforms into a cave. Meep appears and warns Oroboros about interfering in another god's game, and he welcomes everyone to the next level. He warns that the monsters will be a bit different and wishes them luck in achieving victory, as Fay wonders why he wants them to win a broken game. They walk through the second floor, and Nell offers to lead the way, arguing that she has the best skill against traps. Fay questions Oroboros about how long she will follow them, but she silences him, saying she wants them to play her new game when they return, so she will keep watching them in the labyrinth. She gets distracted by a yellow button on the wall and runs to press it, causing the wall to spray pepper on Pearl's face. Nell hears something and tells everyone to be quiet as a cute witch appears. Pearl tries to approach her, but she gets scared and runs away. Pearl notices a strange puff, so she picks it up, but it vomits on Nell, and Pearl notes how bad it smells. They continue their journey, and soon find the labyrinth's treasure room, which is guarded by an angel. He offers to grant their wish, so they get excited, and ask for the door keys. But he suddenly notices their dirtiness, and banishes them with purification magic. They return to the boss room, and discover that they were eliminated because of the pepper spray and vomit, which made the angel judge them as dirty. Fay notes that Oroboros respawned with them, and realizes she's now considered a team member, which makes her happy. They decide to avoid the previous monsters, when Nell hears a waterfall nearby, so they go to find it, and Lea notices a chest hidden behind it. They think the chest has the room key, but find swimsuits instead. They decide not to swim, and continue their progress in the labyrinth, finding a corridor full of apple paintings. Pearl is traumatized, and tells them to stay away from the corridor, but a rotten apple suddenly breaks a window and hits her head. But it doesn't eliminate Pearl, so they continue to the treasure room. They find the angel, who asks about their wish, but he finds them dirty again, and banishes them for being impure. The team carefully navigates the labyrinth, and reaches the treasure room once more. This time they avoided all traps, but the angel still finds them dirty due to previous attempts, so they return to the respawn point again. Fay notices that the monster's smell persists after respawn, and he tries to figure out a plan to complete the level. The girls have an idea, telling him to wait in front of the treasure room as they try to approach the angel one last time, and surprisingly, he opens the door for them. Fay wonders how they did it, and Pearl explains that the key to the puzzle was their smell, so she remembered the swimsuits they found, and cleaned themselves in the waterfall. But she admits they got distracted, so they took longer than they should have, and Fay feels lucky to have them on the team, so he praises them. They proceed to the treasure room, where they see a key that allows them to carry 100 items, and keep them after death. Meep appears, and congratulates them for reaching the final boss, but he activates a trap, and they fall down a pit. We cut to Kelrich, as she tells Dax that they're going to the Labyrinth to rescue Fay, and Dax looks forward to seeing him again. Fay's party lands in the final room, and they find a pyramid with a sign about the boss. He reads it, as it mentions that the boss died from boredom, and Nell wonders if they can conquer the game now. So Fay suggests reviving her, and Lea shares that the theme of the labyrinth is death and rebirth. He shows the return bell, and Pearl realizes what she must do, and rings the bell, but it doesn't work. Fay suggests that they need to complete 100% of the game before the final boss can be revived, but Pearl thinks this will take too long, so they decide to gather the 200 apostles trapped in the labyrinth to help them. Ashlin returns to the game, and is shocked by the amount of ultra-rare items they have gathered, and notices that they have also mapped the entire labyrinth. He activates a camera, so the outside world can see what's happening, as Fay explains what they need to do. Pearl runs to them with good news, explaining that the girls washed the zombie puffs in the waterfall, and the creatures returned to normal. So they thanked the girls, and led them to their village, where they gave Lea the puff's crest, which makes the other puffs friendly. They split into several teams to explore the labyrinth, and find new areas and bosses. Nell finds a hidden door, which leads them to a sphinx, and she finds a ruby, but Oroboros appears, and explains that her eye is more valuable. The sphinx suddenly transforms into a robot, and it declares itself the strongest boss, but Oroboros knocks it down with a single blow, cursing it for interrupting her. But Meep appears, and he bans her by giving her a red card, so she tells them to find her later, as she gets kicked out of the game. Everyone gathers, exhausted after exploring every inch of the labyrinth. Fay thinks about the final piece, and Pearl appears to reveal that they found the last trick. They go to a hidden area, and it's written that they must get a combination of 1 on 6 dice with 24 sides, but the chances of getting this is 1 in 200 million. But Dax arrives, and assures that he can do it. He refuses to roll the dirty dice, and names his attack as Dax's dice, as he miraculously succeeds. They're rewarded with a mirror that nullifies a defeat, and their percentage also increases, but they don't reach 100%. Fay is sure they have explored the entire labyrinth, but he remembers something, and returns to the tutorial, thinking they must check the hole. So they jump in, and it gives them 100%. The group lands in the final boss area, discovering that the hole was a shortcut, and Pearl rings the resurrection bell again, as Fay tells the god to appear. The pyramid glows, and the god Anubis emerges from the pyramid laughing. She suddenly summons all the area bosses to face the group, as they complain it's not fair. The lion attacks, but the group manages to block it with their umbrellas, and the other bosses are also hit, killing them in an instant. So Anubis scolds the lion for eliminating her allies, and Fay wonders if the final boss's weakness is her stupidity. Pearl pulls out the ultimate weapon for the final showdown, and fires the rocket that destroys any boss. But it doesn't work, as Anubis cancels the effect, and she summons an army of golden puffs to buy time, as she casts her spell called the God Eraser. But Lea uses the crest to make the puffs peaceful, so Anubis accelerates the spell, and it eliminates the entire group. But the mirror brings them back, and nullifies the defeat, so Anubis attacks them with her other spells, but they keep dodging. She prepares to cast a spell again, so Fay tries to use their items, but she changes the rules, and forbids them from using it. She casts the God Eraser again, and Nell manages to reflect her attack, but it doesn't work against her, and she decides to use her ultimate spell, as she summons the area bosses to buy time for her. Lea delays them, and Pearl uses her portal, as Anubis casts her spell, obliterating everything around her, but they're able to escape through the portal, and they return after everything has been destroyed. Anubis descends, satisfied that they have played all parts of her game, and declares that they have won. She gives them the master key to the treasure room as a reward for completing the game, and the world celebrates their victory. The entire branch praises them when they return, and Miranda thanks them for winning an unprecedented game. Pearl and Nell are exhausted, but Lea wants to jump to the next game. Fay is determined to clear the gods game with them and have fun along the way, so they all look forward to playing with him again. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.